Chapter 11 I'm Black and I'm Proud. The 1960s were a time for great change in America. Young people all over America were asking questions about their country. They did not always believe what their parents believed. They wanted change. At the March on Washington, a young singer called Bob Dylan put the thoughts of young Americans into his songs. The times they are changing. Things are changing fast, the song says. The old must listen to the young, and they cannot stop change. Young blacks did not want to wait patiently for change. Although they knew that Martin Luther King had worked hard for equal rights, they thought that change was happening too slowly. They wanted power for black people and they did not want to ask politely for it. Perhaps violence was necessary for change, they thought. In 1966, Bobby Skelton and Hugh Newton started the Black Panther Party. The Panthers did not agree with Martin Luther King about the use of non-violence. They said that blacks should buy guns to protect themselves from attacks by whites. Hugh Newton said that the Civil Rights Law of 1964 was too little too late. After a fight between the Panthers and the police, Newton was arrested and put into prison because he killed a white police officer. Crowds of Panthers supporters marched through the street, shouting "Free Huey!" Other Panthers died in battles with the police. Most white Americans were afraid of the Black Panthers. They thought that they were violent criminals, but the Panthers also did some good work. They opened schools in poor black neighborhoods and gave food and clothes to blacks. After a few years, the Black Panthers parties broke into smaller groups, but its message reached many young African Americans and made them proud to be black. They started to learn about Africa, eat African food, and wear African clothes. Another person who wanted a different America for blacks was Malcolm X. In the past, many blacks had the name of their slave owner as their last name, so Malcolm changed his last name from Little to X. For him, it was a way of saying goodbye to slavery. Like the Black Panthers, Malcolm X did not agree with Martin Luther King about the use of violence. Blacks should not ask for help from whites, he thought. Blacks should help themselves. Violence was necessary when you were fighting for your rights. Malcolm said that blacks should fight violence with violence. It was the only language that white racists understood. If a man speaks the language of violence, said Malcolm, you can't speak to him in a language of peace. He'll break you in two. If a man speaks French, you can't speak to him in German. You have to find out what this man speaks. When you know his language, learn how to speak his language. Then we can talk. Many young blacks agree with Malcolm X, more than with later Martin Luther King. They were angry that they still did not have the same rights as whites. Poor blacks living in the big cities of the North wanted to vote, but they wanted other things too. They wanted better houses and more shops. In many of the poorest neighborhoods in America's big cities, young blacks rioted. Many people died in these riots. In the 60s, many important black writers and musicians became famous in America. Writers like James Baldwin and Toni Morrison showed Americans what the lives of black people were like. In his book The Fire Next Time, Baldwin warned of terrible violence in the future. To stop this, whites must change their ways, he said. The black musician Stevie Wonder sang about the difficulties of young blacks. One of his sons told the story of a young boy who was born in the South but moved to Chicago to find work. He finds that in the North he's free, but free only to be poor. Why was anyone surprised that young blacks were angry? Perhaps the most famous black man in the 1960s was the boxer Muhammad Ali, born Cassius Marcus Clay in 1942 in Louisville, Kentucky. Young Clyde won an Olympic gold medal in 1960. He fought the world champion Sonny Liston in 1964 and, to the surprise of most people, Clay won. After the fight, he surprised the world when he said that he had become a Muslim and had changed his name to Muhammad Ali. Don't call me Cassius Clay, he said. That's a slave name. Ali was loud and proud and clever. I am the greatest, he says. And he was. No one could beat him. He began to speak out against racism. In 1967, he refused to join the U.S. Army and fight in Vietnam. Because of this, he was put in prison, and he was told that he was not the world champion anymore. When he got out of prison, he begged George Foreman to become world champion again. Ali says, "When I refused to fight in Vietnam, I wasn't a hero. I just wanted to be free. I wanted America to be America." Chapter 12: Black and White Unite and Fight. The late 1960s were a time of change for Martin Luther King too. Although he was always against violence, he began to see that there were many different kinds of violence. King was from the South and he wanted freedom and equal rights for the blacks of the South. But life for blacks in Northern City was not easy either. Blacks in the North could go to the same schools as whites, but many black children did not finish school. Most Northern blacks were poor. Many could not find a job when they left school. Many came from one-parent families and lived in buildings that were old and dirty. It seems to King that poverty was in itself a kind of violence. He began to think about the rights that all people should have. It was true that black people had to vote, true that they could eat in the same restaurant as white, but it is one thing to be able to eat in a restaurant, it is another thing to have the job that gives you the money to eat there. King believed that a few rich people have too much money and millions of poor people have too little. He wanted an end to poverty, and that meant that someone had to take money from the rich and give it to the poor. It was a strong message, and many people who supported him on civil rights were not sure about it. These new ideas seemed dangerous to many of his supporters. King took his marches and protests to the great northern city of Chicago. He wanted to show America how black people live in the cities of the North, and he saw that it was not just black people in the big cities who were poor. There were poverty among whites too. King wanted to unite poor black and poor white people, to bring them together to end poverty. Black and white, unite and fight, he said. He led marches through the streets of Chicago. Just as in the South, the marchers were attacked by the police. Sometimes it was worse than in the South. The marchers were hit with sticks and bottles. Some black leaders did not agree with King. They thought that he should only speak for black people. Why should he speak for poor white people? Poor white had their own leaders, but King had decided he wanted to do. He planned to lead a poor people's march on Washington. And now everyone in America was thinking about a new problem. Vietnam. All through the 1960s, America was at war in Vietnam. Every year, more and more American soldiers were sent to fight in Vietnam. But 1968, more than 500,000 American soldiers were fighting there. Many of these soldiers were black and came from poor families. In the end, more than 58,000 American soldiers died in Vietnam. Vietnam was a terrible war. More than 2 million soldiers from North and South Vietnam were killed. More than 2 million Vietnamese who were not soldiers were killed or hurt. Thousands of villagers were destroyed and rice fields were burned. Many Americans were against the war. They thought it was wrong for America to go to war with a small country like Vietnam. King agreed with them. He was worried about what his country was doing. He decided to speak out against the war. Some of his friends told him not to do this. They said the war was not his business. He should only talk about the problems of black people. But on the 4th of April 1967, King made an important speech about Vietnam. He said he could not be silent about the war anymore. People had said that he should not speak about peace. He should only speak about civil rights. These people, King says, do not know me. They do not know the world in which they live. Then he attacked the US government. He said that war on Vietnam was wrong. The burning and the bombing had to stop. The killing of Vietnamese men, women, and children had to stop. I speak as a child of God and as a brother to the poor. I speak as an American. The Vietnamese too are my brothers and sisters. The American government must stop its violence against the Vietnamese people. War is not the answer. Martin Luther King was attacked for his speech. What did he know about Vietnam? Some newspapers say he was supporting the Vietnamese government when American soldiers were fighting and dying. But protests against the war grew. All over American protesters fought with the police. University students who refused to join the army and fight in Vietnam wrote. At Kent State University, Ohio, 4 white students were shot dead by the National Guard. Now we know what it feels like to be black, said one white student.